Yeah, well, how's everyone's week been? What are some highs and lows? Might be a good place to start.
Ooh. What day is it?
Changes, man. Changes. Whoa.
Yeah, it's quick turnaround. I mean, sitting in the same place I was last week, and I was so full of hope and energy and excitement. And then the fucking following day, I just crashed. I crashed big time, and I haven't been in this deep, dark hole for months, like since the Pioneers program. I remember feeling like this before we started the Pioneers program and just like running through constant cycles in my head, like, you're shit. What the fuck are you doing? What do you want? Like, you've got everything and you're still feeling this way. Like, what is going on? And I thought potentially, getting the Pioneers program was, fulfilled that little void I had for a minute there. But now that it's gone and the possibilities and opportunities are like everywhere I look, like very hard to just refocus and think, hey, slow down, just focus on day to day. You don't need to have some grand plan figured out. There's a lot of like inherent pressure out in the world to like make money. And I'm like, you don't need to waste any more time trying to find a product or a version of you to sell. Just live your life and it'll happen naturally. It's kind of where I've landed. But it's really hard to turn that switch off, that unschooling of your own mind. Sorry, that was like a ramble. How's your week been, Luke?
I feel
How's
like
that?
I've been.
Way better.
Wow, jeez. Yeah, it sounded like my inner voice just come out. No, my week's been pretty good. I felt like I've disassociated quite a bit because I'm like, what day is it today? Oh, it's
Yeah.
Wednesday again. Like, yeah, it just kind of went by like. Whoop. But no, there's just a few moving parts within the community garden spaces, trying to understand how this is connected to this and where we can get grants from and what's possible. So I just kind of had my head involved in that lately, and nothing else has really existed.
Which is the best space to be in, you know? There's so much turmoil in the world, and just to be in your own bubble and do the next best thing, you know? And sometimes that seems so hard because of outside pressures and what society thinks we should be doing, you know? What our friends think we should be doing, what our wives might think we should be doing, or husband, you know? It's like, or our kids, you know? It's like there's so much of this outer pressure when, man, we don't really need to know where it's all going. You know, it's ebb and flow, man. It's like, what's the next best thing I can do with this now moment? And you're doing it, Luke. You know, you're investing it in your community garden. You've started this project, and you're fulfilling it. You know.
Yeah, it used to be really fun. I remember when I know you brought up starting it. You brought up the pioneers just before, just feeling how you were feeling beforehand. I remember before the pioneers, I was like, I can't wait to just get into everyone's backyard and start planting things. And then at the end of it, I was like, I don't know if I could physically do that. I don't know if I want to keep up with that. So then I was like, yeah, I just got to put it into the community garden and then just try and make that a space where people want to be, and then trying to, strengthen those relationships as opposed to trying to just, So I guess that was our goal, right? To kind of get people involved in their garden, and that was half of, setting it up, teaching them, and.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the goal was always just, hey, I really want to learn more about syntropic agroforestry, and I don't have anyone to talk to about it. So that was a major draw card. Yeah. The whole like building a business off it was secondary, and I got caught up in that. I think the energy it takes to keep the momentum up in that space is something I'm severely already depleted in when it comes to managing my own site and my family day-to-day routine and time spent with my husband. So like, yeah, I totally don't see myself getting into anyone's backyard anytime soon to help them, but I'd love to figure out a way to pass that knowledge on so we can support others to do it.
Yeah.
However that might look.
Yeah, I like that. I remember feeling like in the beginning, I was really excited to build that social media momentum and just keep it going and going. And then I was like, oh man, I'm not consistent at this at all. And it's so tricky to try and do. But yeah, relinquishing that and just letting it, like you said, Sjoerd, just you're just moving forward in this direction. We don't really know what's the next stepping stone, but we know there is going to be a stepping stone. So how is that? Let's
Yeah.
just play on the
Well,
stepping
in
stone.
2 weeks you'll be in Brazil, brother.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and for you too, India. I mean, you're doing it. You're making the videos. You're inspiring people with
Yeah.
your energy. And yeah, shit, a whole bunch of your plants got eaten by parrots. But that's in itself is a massive learning curve, you know, and it's a fucking kick in the gut. And you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This very system I'm sitting in, about 2 weeks after I planted it, Nula, our pet cow, got in here and chomped almost all the high value plants in half. And, you know, at the time I was just so annoyed and distraught. I thought, man, we got to sell this animal. We got to, oh my God, you know, like I'm a disaster. I've invested all this money in all these plants. But actually, you know, they're all doing fine. Only 1 or 2 died. And now I talk about the Nula initiation process where these plants have to go through this heavy pruning in order to survive here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at these parrots as well. If things can come back after being snapped in half, it's like one of those
yeah,
catch-22s with you don't want to spend too much money on an accumulation system or a straight out planting out a space that's just been reset. But then maybe if I had have spent, you know, 3 times that amount and got things that were just a little bit more resilient, I would have saved in the long run. It's a hard decision to make, but I think what I've learned from it is a mix of different size plants all at once instead of having just all of the forestry tube stock, which was really cheap. But if I had have had a few grafted things and a few grasses and planted out beforehand, maybe that wouldn't have looked so interesting to them. All these single little tubes just sticking out of the ground. If I had have worked harder on that placenta stage. Yeah, it's just interesting putting into practice these ideas you have when it comes to syntropic agroforestry, because this was just a pure accumulation spot. And I thought this would be cheaper to do it this way. But nah, there is no free lunch. Something's always going to fuck up. That's the only guarantee.
But you know what, India, you put the plants in the ground and you've had the experience. And that's more than most people already right there, you know?
Yep. Observe the feedback.
Yeah.
And I went to our homeschool class and talked to my friend she's not too far from here. She's probably 20 k's away. Totally different site. Still has the same issues with the parrots, but they demolished hers a lot faster than they did mine. So I've obviously got other things to keep them busy in and around the joint, that if I continue just to have maybe plant out nests instead of a straight line, if I had a doubled down on the diversity and stacked the support species even more heavy, there would have been potentially some survivors. Who knows? There's so many different directions to go.
And do they have parrot scarecrows?
Like, I was just about to say that.
Yeah, parrots are really small. These are lorikeets. There's been no solution. There's no solution to this problem apart from isolation. And I don't want to put nets up around my entire food forest, because then I don't get the blue wrens and then I don't get all the other bits and pieces. It becomes more of a haven for snakes because they get in and they feel safe, so they lay their eggs in there. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to accept that there's a good chance we won't get produce or working tree like out of my system for a few years.
Yeah.
Till there's more for them to harvest.
And another good thing to look at, I don't know exactly what plants you've chosen and stuff, but is the natural weedscape, eh? What is growing really well and quickly around the area?
Yeah. I wish I had have maybe thought less about the birds, because I specifically bought the threatened and endangered bankshires and the casuarinas that they love to eat.
Like, come on.
But it's like, Bitch, couldn't you go to the fucking side of the road? There's heaps of them over there. Don't leave my little babies alone. No forward thinking when it comes to lorikeets.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah. But the observation from that feedback loop is now I've just spent the last few days really going over in my head how I can set the placenta 1 and placenta 2 stages to be pumping at the same time as I plant these little trees, so that there's that full cycle of low, medium, high, emergent within an annual harvest. That's going to keep it all covered up and shrouded, like has happened in my last major install.
Yeah, have you got one planned for spring?
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to think of what I really want to have to eat. The more that I sit with these thoughts, we don't really have too much diversity in our diet when it comes to vegetables and fruits, just because it's so hard to grow them. I don't think people realize how fucking hard it is to get enough fruit and vegetables to sustain your fridge. But yeah, I think I'll go with, you know, a sunflower and a corn emergent and some beans and tomatoes. I'd like to grow all of my vines on the ground. I'm not going to even attempt to trellis them this year, because I think that is what causes so much destruction over our hot summers. They're not meant to be getting hit with that intensity of UV upright for 9 hours a day. So I'm going to try and grow them on the ground. I don't know why people don't do that. You guys got any thoughts as to why people like grow tomatoes and shit on the ground?
It's all about ease and management and industry. You know,
Right.
I think in nature these things would be growing largely across the ground and you know, in chaos systems rather than these controlled environments where they become a bit easier to harvest, possibly.
Probably grow less spotty and stuff as well if they're not covered in other leaves.
But I've put a whole bunch of beans seeds here just throughout the system. See where they grow, man. Same with pumpkins.
Yeah.
See which direction they go and you know, try to guide them a little bit maybe, but just let them be.
What type of winter do you experience, Sjoerd, as far as temperatures?
Yeah.
Weather.
Winter,
So,
yeah. What's your winter like?
Oh, winter. Well, they call this the winterless north, but fuck, if you're in it, it really isn't. Because the winters, though they don't really get that cold, the wind and the rain can be really cold, you know. So it's that wind chill that really does the most damage around here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta protect them with the banana grass and the Teutonia. You know, our friend James from Simply Syntropics, I went and visited his site. Was it yesterday? And it's improved so much in the last few months since I haven't been there, because his Teutonia has taken off and his banana grass has taken off, and it's because he's extremely exposed on a hilltop, and you can see the plants thriving now, man. They're starting to really take off because they're being protected from that wind.
That's what I need to really fast track, and trying to figure out how I can do that without spending way too much money. But I think bamboo might be a good option.
Bamboo's amazing.
Can you do sugarcane?
No, I can't do sugarcane.
Oh.
I could try, but the frost comes. I don't think we're going to get a frost this year. But
what makes you think that?
Something inside of me. I wish I knew more than my womanly intuition. Just based off how the season feels, it just does not feel like a frost is coming. You watch, one will come next week. But even Alison was saying, yeah, we might be getting a cooler summer this year, hopefully. I never remember which one's El Nino, La Nina. But one of them bitches is coming, and hopefully that means we're not getting another 46.
And how much frost would you get, India?
Last year we got 5 days of frost.
And we're talking like -2, -3, or?
Yeah, it probably wasn't lower than -2. By the time we'd wake up, it was just at 0. but you know,
Yeah.
things were frosty. I'm pretty tempted
So
to go in and take some of my bananas down now just to give everything else some more light. But
So I reckon with a lot of banana grass and Titonia and mulch, you could probably keep that frost off, and you could probably even grow sugarcane. I've seen lots of people growing sugarcane here, and we get the same kind of frost.
all right.
I'm lucky because I'm right by the coast. We actually don't get frost at all.
That's cool.
But yeah,
the wind.
If you can get a sheltered microclimate, you'll push the frost off, man. Especially if it's such a short, small frost.
Oh, that sounds like such fun space to experiment with. You know, like not many people are
Frost.
practicing it in the. Well,
like
I
everyone who
wouldn't enjoy that
experiences
element.
frost is shouting at you right now through the fucking screen. You're so lucky to live in subtropical. Isn't it funny? It's the same as like people with curly hair want straight hair, and vice versa.
Yeah. But it's such like for me when I saw a couple of videos of that, the frost being pushed off by creating that microclimate and having all that heat generated underneath the ground. I was like, fuck, that's so amazing how you know your impacts on the land can make such a difference. And then if you think about that replicated like throughout a suburbia or anywhere really, like it doesn't really matter. It's just isn't that just such a beautiful use of your energy? It becomes circular, right? As opposed to just fucking chucking it out into the ether world.
Yeah, I'm excited to try that in-ground compost heat sink situation. I've got the perfect spot for it. That next year I want to, well, as soon as the frost risk is passed, so maybe in 4 weeks' time, I'm going to buy a buttload of bananas. I'm going to start all my custard apples. What do you guys call them? Cherimoya. And a few other like subtropical evergreens. And I want to, build a pit, fill it with our dead sheep guts and our composting toilet, let that heat up, and then plant all my bananas around it.
Yeah.
So that next year they survive winter. That'd be awesome.
Off. I love it.
If I make it enough space that I could actually just put the toilet out there, how good would that be? You just take a dump in your Syntropic food for it. Straight in, straight out.
From hole to plate.
Well, you know, that is the way of the jungle. Once you got a real established forest, you eat your fruit and your berries, and then you go and take a poop somewhere in the forest, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Ew, don't be so uncivilized.
What's that?
I said, don't be so uncivilized, Sjoerd. Ew.
You got to keep the poop in the loop.
Eat the poop in the loop. No shit. Like we've got obviously a septic system attached to the house, like all houses need to have these days. But we've been bypassing it and using the compost toilet to an extent because they built it underneath the driveway and the previous owners would drive their cars over it every day. And when we moved in, it had never been emptied and the leach drains collapsed because the cars had been driving over it. So now when we have heavy rainfall events, you can kind of just smell the leach drains. And it just makes me think like that is the worst system for recycling human waste ever. Just the sludge is just sitting there. Eventually it degrades, whatever, but there's no heat or thermophilic bacteria processing any pathogens that could be present. And so it's just slowly leaching out into the soil where some will fall in like 20 years, might stand on it and catch a worm, you know? That's where my brain goes. I'd rather plant it in the garden and have that heat up and produce me some bananas. Fuck.
Absolutely. Yeah. But just to add on to my story, the day I start taking a poop in the forest, I don't think Inky's going to eat anything out of here.
Really?
Well, if I'm sick. No, she's not into that. She's not into keeping the poop in the loop. I have to educate her on that part. But I am gonna switch my gray water and have it run straight into the forest here.
That's what I gotta do too.
Yeah, I need to. Right now, mine's just going out into a paddock from the laundry. I really need to get that was another spot I was potentially thinking about putting a banana pit.
Yeah,
man.
for sure. Does it get much sun, did you say?
Everything gets sun in summer.
That's true.
So yeah, I think it would be fine. We're on a pretty good block for that. There's no real spot that doesn't get sun.
Yeah.
But just to show you about the microclimate, if I just turn the camera here, you see over there, that's a tropical papaya that's been in the ground now for its second winter, and last winter it died off quite a bit. You see it here, it died all the way back to here, but this winter all these sidekicks have survived and they're doing really well. And my coconut here has been surviving.
Oh, what? Nice.
Is looking pretty happy. So yeah, you know, those are real tropical plants, man, and they're surviving in this microclimate now. So I'm sure you can fight that little bit of frost in there.
Yeah, for sure. I can already see it just from now having planted out 3 rows against each other. So the one in the middle is the one that's nearly 2 years old. But the one I planted out in April, just because I put a big line of green manure along it, that's grown up as high as the high in the strata, and it's kept all that wind from attacking everything. And I thought, fuck, if I'd have done that in every system, where would we be? So it's exciting to I'll be going and getting some Tithonia maybe next month. And what I'll do for over the winter, I will just bucket heaps and keep it on the veranda as safety for those cold months. So I will have a steady supply to bring back out. But, you know, if you get a warm year, you're not going to get frost.
Tithonia is such an amazing one. I went to see that 3.5-year-old site close by here that I've discovered. And these guys started with 20 Tithonia cuttings. And he said, man, every day I'd be out there with a little cup of water, keeping them moist. And now they've got close to 8 acres with so many Tithonia lines. And that's 3.5 years, man. Like they've got it everywhere.
That's what I'll do.
You know, so yeah, just get some and get cracking with it, because it is the best plant for creating microclimate.
The closest anyone near me has some is sorry, I can't speak today. The person who's closest to me that has it is 3 hours away, so it's like a 6-hour commitment for me to go collect some, which is fine. I mean, some days I don't do fuck all, so I could have gone and done it that day. But yeah, I'll make an effort in the next month to drive over and get some. One of the other
get some banana grass.
Yeah.
Can we send it to you?
Nah, WA.
Oh, fuck.
But I mean, I'll accept some seeds if you want to send some seeds over.
Yeah.
I know they don't have seeds, but
What do you want?
can't talk about it on here in case quarantine are listening.
Yeah, I took a bunch of cuttings just this week actually of Tithonia. I know it's a bit early, but I just figured I had it, so much of it going quite tall. I thought, what the heck, man, it's time to prune some of this down and just take some cuttings, hope they survive. Even if just 20% survive, you know, it's still some.
That's something I need to experiment more with, is with cuttings, and I wrote that on the whiteboard, because there's a bunch of different plants I've been observing and seeing how they've responded over that hot summer and how they've bounced back. Everything dropped its leaves. Everything that's supposed to be evergreen dropped its leaves over that summer. And but now, God, they look good. And it's like they did their own personal little reset. They managed themselves. So I'd like to grab some cuttings of those plants and hopefully they'll root.
Yeah.
Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Just use what's in my bloody landscape.
Yeah.
And those are the ones, the strong ones that are there are acclimatized to your particular climate, you know?
Yeah.
those are the ones to work with.
Yeah, Alistair goes, oh, we don't want to work with that one. It grows so vigorous and it's a mess. I'm like, that is what we want. That's exactly the two things we
Give me
want:
that
a mess, yeah, and vigorous.
Oh,
Yeah.
and Kiwis love that word obnoxious. Oh, it's an obnoxious weed. It's prolific. Yep. We want more of it. Bring it on.
Yeah, it's a really hard one to discuss with people.
Oh yeah.
Especially here, people are saying to me, why would you want to plant that? I'm like, there's nothing else. No one's planting anything. So
Yeah.
something's better than nothing, surely.
But once you explain to people that your high value trees will at some point pass by these so-called weeds and smother them out, man, and then they're gone, and they're gone forever.
It only works if you're managing your system correctly, and that's, I guess, where the fear comes in, because people are lazy. And what if you go away for one? Like my Tagastaceae is starting to flower now, and they're considered a weed around here because they're not native, obviously. But all it would take is for me not to be here for 6 months, and then that shit would get carried next door for sure.
Have you considered not pruning it, just letting it go to flower and spread out across your field? Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
This year I want to have them. I want their seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
fun.
that fine balance between senescence and that I can't understand. I just cannot get my head around it. Senescence.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess
it's a way that the trees communicate together, right? And but again, in nature, it happens all the time, right? And what we're doing with syntropic agroforestry is we're trying to mimic nature, but speed it up. But if you leave a bit of senescence here and there, the death hormone, I mean, I've left all my Tittonia to flower for the reason that it's feeding my bees. You know, there's this balance.
It's I don't really understand the senescence hormone too much, really. Maybe that could be what it is.
Yeah, I think that's what
I wonder how powerful it is, or how effective it is, or like maybe because our human ideology is like, oh, death, and it becomes a much bigger issue, or the senescence. It's hard for us to find the silver lining to it, or the pros for it, or
and
how the pros interact with, because the pros must have another relationship, and what are those relationships, and what are they tied to, and what are they feeding?
Exactly. Because let's say my clover is flowering right now. It's one of the only things flowering in the garden. So I haven't been managing that because I know it's fixing nitrogen. It's also bringing the bees in. But nothing else is flowering. So when that's done, that senescence done, right? Then the next thing will come along and start flowering. So as long as there's like a constant flow of different things flowering at different times, surely that senescence hormone is also being hit by the other things that are growing.
Yeah.
Growth hormone. So at what point do they cancel each other out, or are they negligent? Is that the word? Yeah.
The way that I feel about it, guys, is that, you know, the most important thing is to try and do your big interventions in one session.
Yeah.
You know, so that when you're doing huge pruning of all the support species, try and do that all at once, because of course, then you get a huge growth hormone, right? Everything's going, whoa, let's fight this, let's grow. And man, the few times that I've done that, you definitely see the result in all the plants in the system. Because they're getting more light, but I definitely think they're also just responding to that growth boost in the system as a whole, you know?
Yeah, that one makes sense to me. I get that.
I think that's a much more powerful system response than a bit of senescence here and there. Plus, I just think, man, the flowers make me feel good.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, me too. Like some of my support species are flowering now, and I'm just like, oh, it feels so nice, like watching all the bees jump around my flowers. No, not my flowers, but you know, once I put there, and I'm like, oh, it's such a nice feeling. I want to see. I don't want to cut them down.
And I really truly believe that feeling that you're feeling you're also feeding to your plants, man.
Ah, yeah, there has to be that symbiotic relationship. Well, not so much symbiotic, but that relationship, that frequency.
Absolutely, brother.
Mm.
Yeah. So, not that yeah, it's going to be a bit of a subject change, but I was hoping to maybe chat a little bit around our dietary changes, Luke.
Yeah,
If
okay,
you
yeah,
want to talk about that.
Yeah. Did you want to go first? Yours is pretty fresh.
What? You didn't start that far before me.
Well, I'll just say
Yeah,
this.
true.
Look, I can really tell a difference in your face and like,
Oh yeah.
Not that I want to hate it when people say you've lost weight or you've put on weight, like, but you do look like you've put on weight, which is fabulous for you. I guess that's your thing. Yeah.
It was, from 63, which was just like I was pretty consistent at that. I left high school at 60 and I just gained 3 kilos and that was pretty much it. And then I got
So
to 80.
hang on, just before though, Luke. Like for those people who don't know, what's your diet change? What happened?
I transitioned away from veganism into more of a.
How many years were you vegan?
Not 7.5. So we started doing
Wow.
eggs for the last like 4 months, especially in Costa Rica. That's when it kind of settled in. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just keep eating eggs. Especially with the, I try not to, like I tie ethical frameworks to consistency. I think it's a bit tricky and it doesn't really make sense, especially given our history and our relationship to plants and animals. So it's nice to feel a part of a bigger biosphere, part of it all. I felt like veganism was a bit human centric, egotistical a little bit, even though it claimed that it would be an egological mind frame where humans are a part of the system as opposed to being at the top where it's egological and all the other animals underneath. But I don't know. I don't feel like they've incorporated. I think the important factors are keeping it local and organic as opposed to, putting consciousness on a scale and saying this is the hierarchy of consciousness and we cut it off here. We don't give a shit about microbes. We don't give a shit about putting plastic into the oceans or the spaces where everyone shares. We only care about the consciousness level of here upwards. And God forbid you break that kind of thing. So it's
Wow.
nice to be out of it. But it's nice to be able to see it from that perspective as well. So I'm fortunate that I stuck with it. It's nice to look back now. Yeah.
That's
I
such
do
an
feel.
awesome way of wording it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel a lot different about it too now. Like I've gained 7 kilos. I feel a lot stronger. Like yada yada yada, all that shit. No, I do though because I work logistics at IKEA. It can be quite physical, and I like the physical challenge of it. So I try and find ways where I get benefit from it. It's not just me slaving for Ingvar the magpie. I don't know. He's probably a nice guy. Who knows? Yeah, so it's not. I feel a lot stronger, and because we deal with pallets that constantly coming in, I'll find a pallet that's my size, and I'll like shuffle it around a little bit just to see. I don't know, just little. Anyway, I started moving some pallets around that were 75 kilos and shuffling them around. I'm like, this is so fun. Like, I feel a lot stronger.
Wow.
Sleep's been pretty good too, but I've also been smoking again, so I've been getting up to pee every other, like twice during the night. So it's been hard to anyway. So once I get back on track with that, I think I'll feel the benefit of the sleep, like getting stronger sleep. So yeah. How do you feel about it now, Sjoerd? It was quite a ride.
Yeah, for me, it's been it was a real slow process stepping away from meat, but it was a very conscious process. I was running a beef farm, and although here in New Zealand, that's I'd say one of the most ethical ways of farming, I still had some real problems with the chemicals that are being used and forced upon these animals, and B, with the stress that we put them through, especially through our killing practices, you know, and the whole trucking and all that, you know. So for me, it was at first, okay, if you're going to eat meat, you got to do it all yourself. You got to kill the animal. You got to, you know, give it a reasonable, humane death. And but at some point, I was unable to do that anymore through my own spiritual process that I was going through. You know, that I just didn't feel that it was my place to take that animal's life. So then I had to stop eating meat according to my own, you know, own limitations I'd set on myself. And for a few years, I only ate it when people served it to me because I didn't want to be that person that I used to hate. Those people who were like, "No, I can't eat that." But I was slowly becoming that person when I felt so. Yeah, I felt a real. I got to say it. It's a strong word, but I felt a real hate towards the whole industry, man. You know.
Yeah.
And now that I've been guided towards eating meat again, it's only been a week and a half. A week and a half, like 2 weeks ago, I would have said, "No friggin' way am I eating a steak. What the heck do you think?" You know, like my levels of let's say, yeah, just the way I felt about that was very strong, and but it was for my own healing, and I felt for several months I felt a sort of craving towards meat, and like you said, Luke, while we were on holiday in Costa Rica for a while there, we both started eating eggs, fruit of the chicken, because I felt like I was mostly a fruitarian, so fruit of the chicken seemed all right to me. I could live with that. But anyway, now that I've taken that step and started eating it, man, and I felt my body just go, "Whoa, this is what I've been wanting." Um, and a lot of these dogmatic thought patterns seem to have left along with taking that step, and it's been really freeing.
Yeah.
I can't quite put it into words, but it's like on so many other levels, I'm now able to um, think more holistically, let's say,
Yeah.
and to have more empathy for other ways of living. And yeah, it's just far less
Yeah.
restrictive on my own thought patterns.
Yeah.
And it's been really freeing, man. And that whole fear thing.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
It's hard to put into words, but I guess I'm still processing it. And I do feel stronger, like you said, man.
Yeah. 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 I remember here when I was vegan and a lot of other people that would like transition out of it, like celebrities, and all the vegans would jump on the bandwagon and be like, "This fucking asshole," like, and just start berating them. And I'd be like, "Whoa, not worth it. Stay on the train." Stay on the fucking train. But it's, yeah. Like I get it. There's a lot of energy. And I can see the framework. If you don't have any other ethical framework, or you don't have, I don't know. I don't know. I can see how it works and it fits for some people. Um,
Mm.
but it seems like I can see how society can move forward, and this is how we should do it. Pointing fingers at people saying, "Get on board," as opposed to, it's like, it's not really teamwork. Like, how can we as a society move forward, as opposed to, and you're feeling bad for it. Like, I don't know if you want to use guilt and fear as a conduit to pivot people into a certain direction, as opposed to make them realize what they enjoy out of life, what excites them, and then put energy into that, and then do that strength-based practice, as opposed to, steering
That's
people
right.
into a direction. It's not sustainable. That's why there might be a higher churn rate, because people feel pressured into it. And fuck, man, I had when I first went vegan too, I was drinking a lot and I was very energetic. So at parties, I was the life of the party, as you could probably tell, just telling people to get on this moral bandwagon, like, this is what we should be doing, man. But
and I have total respect for that too, like I believe that there's a time and a place for that, and I have a lot and that's what I mean by a more holistic feeling around it all. I have deep respect for people who want to do whatever diet feels good for them, for whatever reason, because somehow you're learning from that practice, and you've got to do what suits you at that time. And for me, it was going through this whole process of being really against it, and not really realizing that. I thought I was really righteous in that, and I feel like I've become much more relaxed in the way that I feel about other people and their ideas around their diet, and about
yeah,
around farming practices, because man, everybody has to experience their truth in order to either grow or evolve or learn,
yeah. I mean, it's
So there's no wrong or right, really,
yeah. There's a lot of
Um,
nice like red pills in there. Like once I first went to veganism, I was like, oh, the impact that I have a pretty big impact to, I don't really know where I'm going. um, uh, yeah,
well,
like I say, it's a bit tricky wording how I feel transitioning out of here, because I was so into the ethics of it, and it still does, and it still does trivialize me. Like last night we had some chicken legs, and I was like, oh man, this is just like, oh, it's still a bit full on, but yeah, I feel a bit more open to it. A bit more I don't know, tricky to word.
but it's a process you're going through, and
Yeah.
for however long or however short that may last.
Mhm.
Um, I'm feeling for myself that almost the whole thing of I'm eating this animal, and who am I to stand above that animal, has almost
Mm.
completely disappeared, with complete respect for the animal. I like, I say a
Mhm.
prayer and a thank you for the healing powers that I my body is requiring right now. I feel that,
Mm.
and we'll see how long that lasts.
I like that. I think that's important. That's what happened last night. When I was eating dinner and I was looking down, I was like just staring at all the little like ligaments and joints and stuff and the cartilage, and I was just like I'm really appreciative now. I look at it, this leg, and I'm like, oh, like I'm glad that I can appreciate it on this level now, as opposed to back then it was just eat it, just eat because you like the taste or something. But now,
Yeah,
yeah, that respect for it is kind of there.
but I think the most important thing is to try and inspire people to um, adapt to more correct, no, better farming methods, more humane farming methods, and
Yeah.
it's the same as what and that's where the food forest comes in, we're trying to mimic nature, right? We're trying to mimic the forest, and we should be doing the same with our animal practices, you know,
Mm.
smaller amounts of animals, and with a more diverse food, so that they don't need all these other things inoculated into them to stop disease. It's
Mm.
exactly the same as the forest, man. I mean, these principles um, I want to slowly start implementing on my property, so that I can show people, like, look, here we have a pig system, and the animals are completely healthy and having a great life. Here we have some ducks. Here we have the cows, all living in syntropy with the forest. And And that's kind of the whole mindset that's shifting inside myself. This is what I mean by this holistic thing. Like I was restricting myself to only growing vegetables and fruits because
Yeah.
for some reason that's was my belief, like that's all we need. And now that I've discovered, no, actually a lot of people, including myself, need a more holistic approach. Well, let's try and implement that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
She's back.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in so bad when you were talking about a
Yeah.
chicken leg. I cooked an ox tongue yesterday, and I don't have much of an issue eating foods anymore because I've gone through that whole mindset change of if I'm going to eat meat, I have to eat the whole animal. I have to eat the jiggly parts, and especially I look at it from a nutrition lens and a human health stamp. Like for me, that is primary goal is to have a full hitting all the amino acid profiles, making sure everything in my diet is balanced in a way that means that you can't just eat the chicken legs all the time. You can't just eat the chicken breast all the time. You've got to eat the different colored meats. You've got to eat the different cuts of collagen or the different choline in it. And when you start thinking of it like that, then you go, hey, like the heart has a really interesting profile of minerals and micronutrients that other parts of the animal doesn't have. So, hey, I'm going to eat the heart once a month. I might get some lamb hearts and we'll have them for breakfast. It does get tricky though when you've got this giant tongue. This is how big these tongues are, and they are the whole tongue, and you can see the bumps on them. I cooked it for a whole day slow in the slow cooker with heaps of stuff out of the food forest, like lime leaves and fennel and everything delicious, so it smelled aromatic and gorgeous. But as you peel that tongue, you can still see all the lumps in it, and as you slice it, it kind of falls apart because it is a totally different piece of meat that doesn't act like any other piece of meat, but you can still see these different shapes and fractal patterns that aren't in a steak. And so that is confronting visually to look at. And do you hide it? So I mixed it up and I put it with pasta. It kind of ended up looking just like silver side in the end, but because of whatever's going on with my hormones and brain at the moment, I struggled to eat it. I couldn't get out of that fucking headspace of that's the lump on the tongue and that's the part that when they lick you is so sandpapery and just peeling a tongue is very confronting. Normally I live in those moments and I go, this is what my ancestors did. This is you know, how they would have prepared an animal that had been freshly killed. The tongue would have been one of the first things they ate. And how beautiful is that? What is it normally being thrown into? And as you're looking at the texture and you're, you know, moving through the whole processing of it, you go, well, this is probably what they do put in sausages. And this could easily be a pate. The texture of it is like pate. So then you start thinking of other foods that you're used to eating and what they are probably made out of that you don't know because someone else has their hands in creating it. And a tongue is a lot cheaper than a liver. You know, so you're starting to think, is the pate I'm eating, is it liver or is it a tongue? And you go into all these thought processes that maybe it was the edibles, maybe it was the tongue. But yeah, it's interesting way to eat for sure. And I think of it when I'm eating really good quality pork and I can see in a pork chop the different cuts and the different flavors of the grain of the meat and how you wouldn't see that in a supermarket pig. You would never have noticed a really dark brown spot in the meat. And if you did, you probably would think, oh, I'm not eating that, cut it out. But that in itself is probably where a heap of micronutrients are that aren't in the other parts of the meat. I find it really interesting and fun to challenge those feelings, especially getting close to the bone and, you know, gnawing on something and go, maybe I should continue to chew this. It's probably got something good for me. It's good for my jaw, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So there's just all these stuff functions. Now it's even for me like not washing as much of my produce before I put it on my plate because I can see there's bugs on it. So that's got some form of health in it. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, you know, these other countries in the blue zones and stuff where they do eat a very high plant-based diet, and they don't have the sanitation that, you know, industrial agriculture has put on us. So they are still getting a lot of protein. They're still getting the bugs, and they're still getting the eggs, and they're still getting all these things on their food. Then they go somewhere like Australia or America and start eating a standard diet of sterilized plants. They get sick because they don't have that diversity in insects that they would have been consuming to keep them healthy.
Yeah. Well, the quality of their food as well.
Yeah.
Like if you have access to that kind of, that's why I think the food forests are so good, because it's so nutrient, it's so organic, and there's so much, you can just picture so much nutrients being in the food that you eat, as opposed to like these chemically sprayed monocrops that we kind of tried to ingest. I think trying might be a good word. I don't know.
I live across the road from a monocrop farm, so I see it from my food forest. And I saw them out there the other day. We were planting, and I could smell something. And I said, Alistair, can you smell that? I got a very, it's one of my superpowers, is my sense of smell. And it took him maybe 3 minutes to start smelling it. And we looked over, and they had their ute, and they were spraying something on the ground. And I couldn't figure out what it was, because they were spraying it on parts that weren't cropped. So to me, I was thinking, oh, they must be spraying to kill these things. I went out there yesterday, and everything is bleached. All of the things they sprayed are now white, like white. They've bleached it somehow. I don't know what chemical they've used to do that, but around the edges of their crops, you can see they've hit the crop a little bit, and it's now gone from green to like white. Like, wow. What have they done? It smelled like, kind of smelled like petrol or some kind of.
Sounds like glyphosate to me.
Yeah.
They're killing the grasses around the hang on, dogs.
My kids are out there, my dogs are out there. We could all smell it in our noses, and 100 meters away from it.
How dare they?
It made me angry. Yeah.
Come on, you go play over there.
There's no regulation in that. Like there's no, they don't have to tell us they're doing it. It can severely impact our health, but they don't have to tell us they're doing it. And I mean, it's all on the whim of, hopefully it's not windy that day, and hopefully they're nice people and wouldn't do it on a day where the wind's blowing. But if I could smell it, it means it's on my property.
Yep. Wow. Oh man. Anyway, about the tongue though, you know, I think that's beautiful. You know, if you're gonna take an animal's life, have the respect to eat everything, and there's healing, like you said, in all those organs, and our ancestors all did it.
It's a real challenge to put yourself into that difficult spot, because for some reason that makes me feel weird to eat the tongue. Am I conditioned to believe it's just gross, or is it because it's so visually like, wow, there's a fucking tongue right here? I wonder about letting people find their way, and the diet that they're on is the diet they choose. All well and good, but how much of that is like an ego-based fear? Or like, a lot of people say, I don't like to eat meat that's on a bone, or I won't eat anything but a chicken breast, and it's like, because it's yucky. And then they tell their kids it's yucky, so then their kids only eat nuggets, or like it just passes down. My children have no idea that liver or a tongue is gross. But, my mum will come over and I'll say, we've cooked this, and she'll go, yuck. So don't say that in front of them, because they have no idea it's yuck. Don't transfer this fucking weirdness that we have around food and meat, as if that tongue, which cost $21 for a whole tongue, that's a lot of money still. I don't know how many kilos it was. They obviously just market beef at a certain. I've noticed lately that organ meat and the growth shit is way more expensive than it used to be, because people are starting to eat it, which is wonderful. It makes me happy.
Probably. Yeah. And I really do believe that a lot of it is in your mind. Certainly from myself, and that's what I've noticed in this transition back to meat, is like, whoa, a lot of that was going on up here. And that's been relaxing on its own, like just such a relief to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting that you choose chicken. Can I ask why you choose chicken so heavily, Luke? Do you just love chicken?
Oh no, I didn't. I'm more of a fish I like fish more. At least chose that one. But I like. We haven't had dairy yet. But just meat. No, I prefer the fish, or I haven't had red meat yet, but I'm excited to have this. I want to have a relationship with there's a local butcher just down the road, so I want to chat with him and then find out.
The happiest shop you'll ever go into is a butcher. I've never been into a butcher where they haven't been so fucking excited to talk to you. They love to answer questions like, where do you get that from? And I was in the butcher yesterday and we were discussing the scam of freight right now and how goods and services are being priced in a way that makes it seem like they're indispensable, but then to get it freighted to you is what the real cost is. That's where the real grubby, gross, ethical thing is actually causing chaos within our distribution of all goods, food and goods. I just bought a bag of salt. The salt itself cost me $8, but it cost me $132 to ship it to me. And I chose to do that because it's the only salt in Australia that is tested for herbicides, pesticides, and microplastics. So I know that I'm going to get 15 kilos of salt, which will last me about 2 years. The thought of us as a society continually trying to post things to buy goods and services that are being shipped all around is fucking weird. Yeah. The butcher said to me, his freight charges have gone up $20,000 this year. He's paying nearly $40,000 just in shipping of the meat. And I said, but that's not hard to understand why, when all the meat that you have to buy gets taken from the abattoir, sent to Perth, cut up, and then sent back, like as if there's not cows in the paddock. Fucking 5 Ks away. And so it's just like these scams of everything going in different directions. My salt will last me 2 years. I'm happy to pay $130 for the privilege to get it shipped across the country, because if you think about that, imagine how much of the money in the world is being chewed up by freight and distribution.
Just inefficiencies.
Way too inefficient. Yeah. And you just went and grabbed a piece of fruit from the food forest, didn't you? How far'd that travel?
Tobaccos.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think what kind of gets me about chickens as well. What gets me about chickens as well is I can kind of process them here. So in my head, because kind of like you, Sjoerd, some of the reason why I went vegan was, if I couldn't do it myself, how could I justify paying someone else to do it? I think I could process chickens, so that's kind of where I started as well. But yeah, I can do that. And fishing, I'd always dreamt when we buy our land to dig a dam out and then have fish in there that we can fish from. So in my head, I was like, I think I could do that. That kind of, but a cow, I don't know if I subscribe to that again, that kind of consistency of that ethical framework. But
no offense, that to me just sounds like you're rationalizing and finding excuses.
Yeah, and there's so many other ways.
And we all have like these different boundaries of ethics. So for me, I can't eat chicken. I can't get a chicken from the shop because they are, as far as ethics are concerned, when I'm thinking about ethics of nutrition, they're not fed a species appropriate diet. They don't have the biology to be able to process what we're feeding them. Therefore, it transfers to their flesh. We're eating it. We're getting double whammy. So at least we're getting the meat, but the practices it took to create the foods that they're eating, and then the way it's delivered to them, that then delivered to us, is like a 3-step process that's fucked on all 3 steps.
Yeah, and most free-range chickens have about a chicken and a half space.
Yeah, it's not good.
So they can barely move.
Yeah.
And the same goes.
But you're right that a chicken, should be. It's something that should be easy to process, and everybody should be able to have a couple of chooks, man. You don't need a hell of a lot of space to give them a pretty bloody much better life than they're getting out in this industrialized world, But it's exactly that thought pattern again, India, that's been so freeing for me, like to go, you know what? Actually, I don't have to do that. I can have the right ethics and have somebody else do that part that I am no longer able to do.
Yeah.
because there are plenty of people, especially living rurally like we are, that are doing these practices. And so yeah,
it's the same mindset that the people who shop for all of their fruit and vegetables at the supermarket go through when they decide they don't want to grow it themselves because it's easier. Someone's doing it, someone else is doing it, I'll just get it from there. It's the same thing, which I'm not saying it in a negative frame at all, because it is really fucking hard to grow your own food and your own fruit. There's a reason why, you know, you could be of service in that respect, helping people get the fruit and vegetables, or helping design the systems that will allow the cows to eat food forest food instead of us shipping in feed for them. Yeah, that is the ethical spot we're in now too. We are financially able to have animals and ship the food in, but for me, that is like, I'm not fucking getting involved with that. I'm not doing that, because that to me is not ethical.
Yeah, that's a nice way of nice application of syntropy too, right? Like you want to be able to sustain what you have on your land, as opposed to needing constant input, a constant drip, constant attached to the I guess so.
And in that way, supporting the people who are already doing those practices, you know? Because they should be supported. They should be allowed to charge a little bit more than the supermarket, because it needs to switch over. Well, it needs to. I hope it does.
It's going to be hard to see it change, because for our area of the world and the way the export is and the government subsidies are set up for meat and agricultural exports in general, they're kind of like destroying the industry. They're kind of pretty much, there's one butcher in this whole region, a real butcher, and I have to drive an hour to get to him. There's no other butchers. They just get all their meat cut in Perth and sent back. So they're pretty much eradicating an entire industry based off the bureaucracy has put into place, like all these regulations that they must follow that they can't anymore. It's too expensive. Butcher was telling me if a new person wanted to come in and set up a butcher, it would be 500 grand easily to like get everything you need to be able to do it. And even then, you're paying now in other ways the licenses for. They need a license to operate a bandsaw. Like,
but again, in deep respect for doing that, you know, like you're supporting the new wave of how a better way, a more holistic way of growing food and dealing with it, you know. And hopefully, because it's working for that butcher, others will think, oh man, actually maybe I can do this. And you know, all we can do is do the best we can with every now moment that we have, you know. And hopefully, well, I truly believe that goes up into the collective consciousness and helps change other people's minds.
I think yes, that's all well and good, but how do we change the bureaucracy that's creating these problems? Because I think a lot of people,
by doing exactly that, India, because more and more people will realize, hey, there's actually a better way, and they won't be able to function anymore. The market always still has the control, you know. When the people lead, the leaders will have to follow.
We need more leaders.
But it could be a quick process, but I think it'll be a long, slow process.
I don't think it's going to be quick. No, I think it'll be like it always is, this multi-generational, like 100-year sort of process to get out of what we've created.
Even though it could happen in just 1-2 generations. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We'll just keep growing food forests and keep implementing what we think is a correct way, and see who wants to join in.
Yeah, let's not make a cult. Let's not make a gang, or an ideology, or a religion, or a doctrine. Let's just fucking live. Let's fuck up and then do better.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Those stone tablets.
But I
did
don't
pretty
want
well.
any tongue eaters in my cult.
No tongue eaters.
Everything except tongue eaters. No.
That's what I want to see from you fellas. I want to see you boiling up a tongue, peeling a tongue.
Well, I've made the decision, India, that next time we do a home kill beast, that I want to be present with the guy, the butcher. And yeah, I do want to take the organs home.
Yeah, good on you.
Normally he just dumps them in a hole.
Ugh.
But no. I want to take those home, and I want to
I get the same visceral, like, disgusting reaction that I get now when I think about the fact that we throw away organs and bones and bury them like that, like we do with placentas at the hospital, rip them out, throw them in the fucking bin, like as if they're just waste, when really they are the life force and the machine. They are Syntropy. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've ever seen a cow give birth, but a cow, which is a complete and utter herbivore, will eat the placenta of its young straight away. Somehow it has that inbuilt instinct. You know, a heifer, its first calf pops out before it'll deal to the calf, eh? It eats the placenta.
And they will say things like, people use that kind of argument that they're doing it only for self-preservation, for because of predators, but I don't believe that fully.
No way.
Because our calf's going to be just as no, they're a herd animal, so yeah, to me that doesn't make any sense.
No, and there's for so many generations there's been no predators here in New Zealand.
Yeah, they're a domesticated animal. Yeah,
it's just an inner knowing.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, I think I have to go.
Good chat.
Yeah.